Good morning and welcome to Start the Month for the first Friday in August. And we do hope that even if you've not been able to get away this summer, that you have found some space and rest and refreshment. And we're recording on Thursday, and in our pattern of reading of the Psalms, which you will find on the diocesan website, we will reach Psalm 16 tomorrow.
Well, this is a very beautiful psalm, which is also particularly significant in the way it looks forward to the promise of Jesus' resurrection. It speaks of that in a way that brings hope and encouragement. And in fact, Peter quotes Psalm 16 on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. We want to focus particularly on verse 8, which, as we reflected on this, it seems to be addressing the question, how do you hold a steady course in your faith when you face trials of many kinds, as James, the Apostle, in his New Testament letter puts it? How do you hold a steady course?
And in the psalm we're reading, Psalm 16, David prays, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. And in his commentary, Derek Kidner says, the bold words, I shall not be moved or shaken, which can sound like pure bravado, are only worth singing as the climax of such a sober and realistic verse as this. And he says, at my right hand suggests a person who will stand by you. And Derek adds that in light of how this phrase is used elsewhere in the Bible, more specifically, this help might be in court or in battle.
So it isn't simply the encouragement of good company when things are hard, though that is a precious thing to have when God sends in a timely way a friend to draw close to us in a difficult time, and also when we have that sense of God's nearness to us. But it struck us very particularly around this verse 8 and what Derek Kidner says about the context of being in court or in battle, knowing someone is by your side, that this psalm, in looking forward to celebrate the saving work of Jesus, is in one sense reminding us of his triumph on the cross is where he becomes the mediator, declaring us completely forgiven, as it were, in the court of God's judgment over sin. And he's there beside us saying, you are loved, you are forgiven. But also we see that his presence with us in the midst of the fiercest of all battles, as he triumphs over the power of death itself. And so here is the presence of the Lord in the saving work of Jesus, with us, beside us, at our right hand.
So it's no bravado to then declare, in whatever circumstances we are facing, with him at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead, nor will you let your faithful one see decay. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. And this is why, as Christians, we have a living hope in Jesus that nothing can take away.
And it's also why we love sharing through Diocesan Communications the amazing stories of God's living hope continuing to change lives today in all sorts of different parts of the diocese, and people of all ages and backgrounds. And it's just so thrilling and encouraging to hear those stories. And very often they contain that sense of discovering the closeness, the nearness of God, the work of Jesus on the cross and his resurrection, but also his closeness in the midst of the challenges of life. So perhaps as you go into August and maybe find a slightly different pace over the next few weeks, why not reflect on Psalm 16 and how we can keep our eyes always on the Lord, who renews and sustains our hope by his amazing grace. And may God continue to bless you whatever you're doing over these next weeks. And if you're part of the diocese, we want to say thank you again for all that you do in so many different ways to bring God's living hope to others through the ministry of our churches.